Also, in the initial stage of new life, it was more like kind of like like encouraging them, and then also doing Q&A because people were unfamiliar with house church shepherding and some of the stuff that happens during a house church meeting. So we'll have kind of Q&A. They will ask me questions, and I will address certain issues and a certain theme or topics that could come up in the house church meeting or like a house church shepherding. But now we've been doing this for close to 20 years, about 18 years. The meeting format goes like this. We gather together at church on Wednesday. We used to do this. You gotta remember this. We used to do this every week for about the 10 plus years. There was only about maybe 5 years ago that we started to have a monthly shepherds meeting. But until then, we had a weekly shepherds meeting on Wednesday, every single Wednesday, except the first Wednesday, which is the house of prayer. And so these days, we meet once a month at church at 7:15. And then we start with two songs, like a praise. And then after that, last night, there were about 50 shepherds that came out of 73. And so we have about 65, 70% participation rate on any given house shepherds meeting. So after two songs of praise, I have them do a praise, one sentence praise prayer, praising God for who He is. So oftentimes we focus more on what God has done for us. So our prayer ends up being, thank you, God, for this and that. But during this time, I have shepherds pray, sentence prayer, praising God. So for example, I praise you for being the rock of my salvation. I praise you for being kind, compassionate. So we want to focus on God through this sentence prayer. And then after that, uh, we go into time of sharing testimonies and praise reports. So this is very recent testimony that the people are sharing, no more than maybe a few weeks old. So we met last month, and then we met yesterday, and anything that happened in between, they talk about the positive progress. So like a lot of the people shared yesterday about how the VIPs, and then the family members of our church who are VIPs, who used to be very negative, very harsh towards our members because they are spending lots of time with the house members and church family, and then like these VIP family members would ridicule them and then put them down. But when these people's houses got flooded, it was only our church members that showed up and helped out. And in one case, this VIP family member sincerely apologized to her younger sister, who just became a Christian, saying that I am so sorry for making fun of your God, fun of your church, and fun of your house church members. And so, we share testimonies for maybe good, maybe 7 to 10 minutes, like half minute, per person or 1 minute per person. And then after that, I will make the announcements that people need to know so they can bring that to their house churches, or they will remember to pray together with me. And then we have this rotation where one person will come and then pray. And this prayer is not like sort of on the spot, winging it type of prayer, but they prepare this prayer. And then after that, we have another person on a rotational basis who will share about 15-minute testimonial message. So you just have to follow this, rotation. Once you come up with a rotation, you just have to have one person pray and another person share a testimonial message. The next meeting, the person who share the message can pray, and another person can share the message. So you come up with your own, structure, and then after that, we go into time of intercessory prayer. So any topics that all the church members need to know about, I throw those topics one by one, and then we spend about maybe 7 minutes praying together, and then we break up into villages, and then we have a village meeting from maybe uh, 8:15, 8:20 to about 9 o'clock. And then during that time, it's more like a house church meeting for the shepherds in their own village. And so shepherds are encouraged to share their own issues too. But some things, it's not really easy to share because some of the stresses that the shepherds get are from the house church members. So you cannot really talk about, your members causing you stress. So like it is a village meeting is more like shepherds gathering together to share their hardships and the difficulties in shepherding. So after that, they dismiss themselves. So usually we end at about 9 o'clock. So 7:15 to 9 o'clock.
Okay, yeah, awesome, thank you. So what would you say is like I guess the most important? Is it really the testimonies that is like the most powerful time, for the shepherds meeting? Is that like kind of the core part of the shepherds meeting, would you say?
So in the earlier stage, I think the Q&A will be very important because the shepherds are lay people, and they will ask you a lot of questions that have to do with pastoral ministry. You remember, they are the lay pastors, and so, we have the experience, we got the training, so, you can answer their questions from a pastor's perspective. That was very important. But these days, yes, I would say that three very important components will be the praise report sharing time, testimony sharing time, because you get really encouraged by hearing other people sharing testimony. And these testimonies are not huge testimony, but little praise report here and there, the life, like the life taking place in your house church, and you share that, and other people get really encouraged. And then testimony is really good too. Oftentimes it's quite personal and very touching and moving, so that's good. And then the most important thing I think is the village meeting. After the general session, we break up into villages, and they take good 40 to 50 minutes to share about their own feelings, their own struggles and the joys. And that's when the village leader listens and facilitates, and then pray for each other. And so the ones who actually regularly come to the shepherds meeting, they do quite well. But the ones who are habitually are absent, what can you do? There are some shepherds who really don't take this thing seriously, or due to their own work schedule, they find themselves very difficult to show up. And usually they are the ones who just barely maintain, and then it's very similar to local churches. Some pastors do well, others are very stagnant, and so, that's just reality.
Yeah.
Okay, can I ask a question along those lines too about the shepherd meeting, Pastor Eric? Is the I know you said about 50 to 75% attendance of the shepherds on average.
60 to about 70%.
60 to 70%.
Yeah.
Is that when someone signs the shepherd's covenant? Because I believe you have a shepherd's covenant, right? Is attendance required or just like strongly encouraged?
It is required. It's required, and then, but then he says that I will do this as best as I can. So it's not perfection that we are looking at,
right?
But then your best, and so
Do you have those instances where maybe a shepherd has gone several months without attending? Like, do you reach out to them and say, like, hey, I want to see you at the Okay.
So I have this right here. Can you see this?
Yeah.
So this is more like house church shepherd's attendance, and also their ministry journal. So I check off like who turns in, who doesn't, who shows up, and then if I see shepherds not turning in any ministry report for about 4 weeks straight, then I will send out email to them just to remind them. And then also the meeting too. If they miss like 2 consecutive meetings, because we only have 1 meeting per month.
Right.
If they miss 2, that's huge, and so I will send them a reminder. Hey, you've been missing, 2 meetings back to back, and so.
Yeah. Then also
and at the same time, I will remind people, hey, if you're gonna be out of town or if you cannot make it, just let me know and let your village leader know, that you will be missing and why you are missing. Sometimes they don't say why they are missing. So when they say, oh, I can't make it, and then I always reply by saying that, what are you doing? Why? And then they let me know that they're traveling or they have to work at home. conference call and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. Resume, Dan.
All right.
Cool. And so I guess like going along that, I saw, so you're saying you keep like track of certain metrics, like with house church attendance. Can you also explain like what do you actually like formally keep track of like how many, which shepherd came to the meetings, and like what do you keep track of? What are all the numbers?
Yeah, so that's what I do. I have like an attendance sheet. Like you create this like chart, with the names of the shepherds and all the dates. So for example, in your case, it's a weekly shepherds meeting, but for me, it's monthly. So I write down those dates on the horizontal column, and then when they show up, I just check it out, and then I actually hand out this thing, and I ask them to check off their name. And the ministry journal, and when they send it in to me, then after I read it, and then I check off their boxes on the particular. So for example, like after the Friday meeting this week, they are encouraged to send in that previous week's ministry journal, either on Sunday or Saturday or Sunday. So when they do that, I read them, I print them out, I read them, and make any type of comments. And then before I put them in the mailbox, I check off their name box. Okay, you turned it in during this week, and so I know like when they are missing and how often they are missing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. And then what about like, so for the house churches too, what numbers do you keep track of? Is it just how many people show up, or do they also kind of keep track of like, do you recommend them to take attendance too, like kind of for house churches?
Yeah, so again, we have that chart on the wall, attendance chart. And so, each house church is supposed to designate a person who will be responsible to record how many people came on Friday. And so they just write down. That's their ministry. So people who are extremely busy, they can't really do much. There is a very simple ministry. Your ministry is to write down how many people came, to the meeting on that chart, so that Lang, our admin person, can tally up and then write down how many people showed up on Friday, on our bulletin each Sunday. So they do that, and then I just read about who showed up and how many people showed up on my own. But they are responsible to put it on the church attendance chart on the wall.
Okay.
In a way, it's a good thing because you kind of little sort of help people to see what's happening at least in terms of attendance. So if you have 4 house churches and you write down these house churches names, and then you have these dates, let's say you meet on Fridays, you write down those dates, and then have your 4 house churches write down the number. So if Kazakhstan house church has 8 people, and then the India house church has like 5 people, how each house church is doing in terms of attendance. So where it's growing, where it's stagnant, and so everyone gets to see, and at the same time, I think it creates, in a way, healthy sense of competition. Oh man, we gotta shape up, we gotta pray more, we gotta reach out to VIPs. I don't think it's a bad thing.
And so you said like earlier on, even you didn't have like a lot of testimonies, but it was just a more Q&A time with the shepherds, and so it was just more about like pastoral ministry, I guess, because I think kind of that's a little bit missing in our house churches right now, our shepherds. Like we have the regular meeting, to have the format down, but I don't know if the shepherds are really getting the ownership as like, I'm the pastor of this house church. I am spiritually responsible for my house church members. It's sort of like, I just make sure it's happening, but I'm not really checking up on people during the week. I'm not really like kind of ministering to needs and all that. But I guess like, how can we encourage more that kind of see themselves as like lay pastors,
Okay, so a couple of things. One is, you gotta realize that these people are still lay people who have full-time job or who are full-time students. And so their primary responsibility is to pray a lot for their members and then serve them, practical needs, right? And when the house church members actually ask questions to the shepherds, you gotta remind the shepherds, hey guys, I'm here for you. I'm here to support you, answer any of the questions that you have. So if anything is beyond you, please, utilize me, use me, and ask me. I'm here to help and support you. So let them know clearly that their number one job is to pray for their members and serve them, not to teach them very complicated, Bible study or like, be a full blown like pastor who are shepherding you other pastor over all of them, but that you gave them this group of people because the lay people are supposed to take care of one another, but we are doing this for the first time. It's kind of new, so you're trying to get these people used to praying for them, serve them, and while they are praying for them, God will show them what it is that they need to do to minister to them. But any issues that arise, I always tell people, I'm here. So if anything's beyond you, please, come and ask me. And during your shepherd's meeting, yours, because the group is still small, you may want to ask, hey guys, how was your house church this past week? What's going on? Is there anything that is very difficult for you to not, be able to answer or tackle? Let me know, and then you ask them questions. And as they get very experienced, then they will have a lot of stuff in their resource toolbox that they can, take out and then use. But still, it's a little bit, like an infant toddler stage for you. So let them clearly know that you are here to help and support them. You got a question, Mitchell?
Yeah, along the same lines, have a similar dynamic too, where maybe half of the shepherds just don't have the training and don't see themselves as a spiritual shepherd. They have the title, but just like you said, they're regular people working 9 to 5s. They've never had any type of seminary education. Mm-hmm. So what I was going to say was, would you recommend for Dan and myself and for our situations to kind of make the shepherds meeting for there to be a portion of it that's dedicated more to like kind of training, like at a very basic level, small things. Here's how you establish a culture of encouragement within your family church. Here's how practical ways to reach out to VIPs and things like that.
Yeah, so that's a good point. And I remember doing this. Like when we were small, I didn't want shepherds to come out to church too often, because I wanted to protect their time. Yeah. So, I remember going through experiencing God with them during the shepherds meeting, and then also when I brought in Living Life Bible Study, I only made it, for shepherds and shepherds' wives. So made it very special and a very elite type of thing, where other people were kind of like wonder what's going on, among the shepherds and shepherds' wives. Why is it that they are the only ones who can take this? So I made it very special. And so, that's true. If you want to have like an hour and 30 minutes, I don't know how long your shepherd's meeting is, but they can only ask so many questions. So you can set aside a portion of their time to actually give them shepherding / leadership tip, and then walk them through, those type of things. That will be very helpful too. I remember going through Bible study with them. And then these days, I have these people share their testimonial message as a way of training these people, getting them used to standing in front of people and then sharing. And so in the month of October, I'm going to be out for 3 Sundays going to Korea with my wife. But, I feel more comfortable about having some of our shepherds who tend to have the gift of, speaking and teaching, share on Sunday instead of, inviting the local pastors that I may not know. And it's not like, only the ordained pastors can go on the stage. Some Korean churches are like that, right? And some even Caucasian churches, or whatever the church is, they are very rigid about who can actually go to the pulpit. But, in our case, it's pretty flexible. So I feel more comfortable about our shepherds going up on the stage and sharing their testimonial message than, having somebody come in. So these days we do that, but in the earlier stage, I remember giving them devotional message, every, Wednesday, 15 to 20 minute, message. And through that, I would, point out a few things that they can actually take and then implement in their shepherding ministry.
Yeah, you also do a blog too, right? Where you talk about specific issues within house churches, and don't you do a blog or something like that?
Yeah, so I averaged like about once a month in the past. So like every month I would maybe like address some things. But these days, because of Facebook, I'm writing stuff on Facebook. I've been slacking off, but the Korean side pastor, they write something every week, and I guess that it would be good for me to do that, but just haven't been able to train myself. And the writing is very hard for me.
Yeah.
That type of formal writing, maybe like Facebook, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
And so, but if I count all the stuff that I actually wrote, pastor's desk, it ends up being about one a month.
Yeah.
And I will address certain things in regards to pastoral ministry or house church policies, my own personal life and stuff like that.
Yeah, and those Facebook posts too, because I follow you a lot too. They're very helpful. I like what you do because you don't just give a description of something that took place. You'll usually, what I notice is you'll there's like teaching in there. You'll do an explanation of why you do what you do, and I think that's extremely helpful.
Okay.
And the other thing when I visited your church at the pastor seminar, that I was really impressed by was you had a shepherd pray during the Sunday service, right?
Yeah.
You do that every single Sunday?
Every Sunday. So that's more like a pastoral prayer.
Right.
Usually the pastors do that, but for me, I consider shepherds as the lay pastor.
Right. So what I was getting to is that sets a certain culture in your church of where you put a certain you put a certain level of authority or responsibility where the whole congregation can see a shepherd going up there and okay, wow, this person has leadership in the church,
Mm-hmm. Right, and so you have to constantly elevate the shepherd's role and importance, because they are the lay pastors who are actually doing pastoral ministry day in, day out, and so also at the same time, like you mentioned the prayer, but sometimes like people grew up in church, they think they can pray by winging it, right? They just go up and then they pray. But I give a detailed description as to what elements need to be covered, how it should be done, so that I tell them to make a prayer at least about 2 minutes, but no more than like 3 minutes, so about 2.5 minutes, and then touch up on all these things. And so they do, and oftentimes they read the prayer that they prepared. I feel much more comfortable with that kind of prayer than people who think that they're used to praying, just go up on the stage and just start praying whatever comes to their mind, and so I mean, like when they write it out, they write it out in a very prayerful spirit, and so there is nothing wrong as far as I'm concerned reading the prayer.
Yeah, that sounds great, and I think just more and more like I wanted birds opportunities on Sunday too, like and just I think that probably helps them and the congregation to see them more as the spiritual leaders also, and then I like how you said it's like you're training them too. You're training, that too is training to speak publicly, to think about what you're gonna say and not just like off the cuff, and just but like and so another question I had is like, so one of our house churches, it's growing a lot, it's and so they may be they just multiply, but they might need to multiply again soon. Wow. But it's like a lot of and because they're bringing VIPs, they're bringing de-church people, like one guy, he's an American guy and grew up in Church of Christ and like went to Church of Christ college, and it was like very strict. He just felt like Jesus was forced down his throat, and he just like was so turned off by the church, and then like a friend invited him to, and afterwards he's like, what'd you think of it? And he's like, I loved it. It's like it was nothing like I expected it to be, and so I think he was really expecting like a Bible study and all these sort of things, and but then it's almost like the shepherd of that group, who is just our newest shepherd, he's kind of concerned like almost that it's growing too fast. And then also he's worried that like that some of these guys, like he questions their motives for coming, you know, and it's pretty obvious like they're not really spiritually mature. And he's like, it seems like they just, you know, they're not really coming on Sundays, but they come to house church consistently, and it seems like it's just a social gathering, you know, and they're coming more for like social reasons. And I mean, is that a concern, or like, because he was thinking to possibly even talk to them and be like, unless like you come on Sundays and like you're actually spiritually seeking, that, you know, that you shouldn't come even. Like he was almost thinking like that. But what do you think about that situation?
I mean, like if they're like a VIPs, then that's what they do. So you gotta be patient with these people, you know. But if they are Christians but who are not really committed, and they're kind of causing maybe like you know division, or like causing disruption, or like become a hindrance, then maybe you want to kind of sort of set them aside and talk to them. So it all depends on who these people are, you know. And so if they are VIPs, you know, I mean, they can take as long as they want. And so, you know, you talked about membership process, and I think you are doing this. But if I were you, you know, like you know, the VIPs should be allowed to come to house church as long as they need to. But then along the way, you want to have a house church shepherd, you know, like regularly encourage them to take receiving Jesus meeting, you know, and then hopefully they will receive Christ, you know, and then they get baptized. And after that, you have to have your own membership class, and we do it once every 2 months. So, you know, you have to have a formal membership process where they understand what this church is all about, and what is the responsibility and what is the privilege of being a member. You got to make the membership very special, right? And so sometimes people come, and every so often, like people from different cities come as a Christian, and they immediately want to get involved in ministry and say, hey, you know, we don't need you right now. You got to go through all this thing. And then after that, you can get to, you can, get a chance to get involved in ministry. So we make ministry membership very special, you know, as a privilege. So, you know, have them come to our church, and then have shepherds encourage them to go to receiving Jesus meeting, and then allow people an opportunity to receive Christ and baptize in the membership class. And then during the membership class, if you spell out what's required of them, not everyone will really, really respect this membership covenant. But still, after several months or even a year, if these people who actually went through membership class and they signed the covenant and they became a member of a Unity Baptist Church, but they're not really following through on their commitment, then you can actually bring that up as, hey, you know, remember you signed this, nobody forced you, nobody pressured you, it was your choice, and I think you're lacking in some of these areas. Hey, can you please respect the membership covenant that you signed? So, you know, I haven't done this, you know, in an official way, but, you know, every so often I, you know, remind people, hey guys, you know, you became a member on your own. You gotta respect it, you know. So, and then these people that you were referring to, are they Christians or are they VIPs? Dan.
So it's kind of like like it's hard to tell sometimes. You know, it's like either they're like really immature Christians,
Okay.
you know, or they're just like, you know, or they're VIP, you know, like, because one of the guys, you know, he in college, he was like serving as worship leader and did all this stuff, but since college, he just stopped going to church altogether, you know, for several years. And now he's just finally starting to come back to our house church, you know. And so it's like, you know, they have all this background, they're growing up in the church and all these things. And so, yeah, it's like it's like very close together. You know, it's like,
okay. So, like, I mean, they are basically Christians, but they are unhealthy.
But yeah, I think that really affirms kind of what I was thinking too. Yeah.
And then, and then also on top of that, if you can do like some things like on Sunday, right, as a house church, then there will be more incentive to have these people come. So, for example, let's say you guys take turns to do special music or some special presentation in the middle of the worship. That's what we did. So when we were running about 70 people, we transitioned into a house church. And then about 50 people actually signed up. So there were about 15, 20 people who chose not to. But in order to make these guys very envious of being part of a house church, what I did was, hey, for the next month and a half, every week we're gonna have each house church come and present, doing either skit or like a special song or like whatever. Like every house church prepared something and they did it. So these 15, 20 people who are not part of any house church, they realize that there is a lot of fun stuff going on, and that everyone is part of a house church. So they eventually got incorporated. So that's one of them. One of the things that you can do. Another thing is like, for example, like cleaning the church. If you take turns, hey guys, let's take turns to clean the church. And then if it's that particular house church's turn, and there are some guys who grew up in church but who are not coming to church on Sunday, shepherd actually can use the, hey guys, we need your help. Can you please come? So they can get their feet into the church premise, and so there are different things that you can do to get these people involved. And at the same time, you want to continue to drill into people's minds that, there is no such thing as Christians who are not part of the body of Christ. It's an oxymoron, and so you want to teach and preach that type of message.
Yeah, that's good. It's creating the FOMO, right? The house church FOMO.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Fear of missing. What is that?
Fear of missing out.
Missing out.
Oh, you gotta be. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So you gotta make it kind of like a fun and make it envious.
Yep. Yeah, that's great. And so, and talking about like membership class too. And so I have your materials and it's available on the House Church Google Drive, in the pastors Facebook group too. But I guess like, can you talk a little bit more like after you kind of go through the teaching process, like how do you like finalize the member? I know this is like a very basic question, but do you have them sign something at the end, or do you give them time to pray about it before they do it? And then I think you usually kind of announce them on the next Sunday too, right? You do some kind of ceremony or something to welcome new members. Can you talk some of those things?
Right. So in order for people to come to the membership class meeting, they already went through several different steps, which is they started to come to house church on a regular basis. And then after having done that, they were encouraged to come to Receiving Jesus meeting. So everyone has to go to Receiving Jesus meeting. Everyone has to have a house church. And then through house church, they get to come to Receiving Jesus meeting. And then if they are already saved, then they get confirmed in their salvation. If they are not saved and they want to receive Christ, then they receive Christ right there and then during Receive Jesus meeting. And then those people who receive Christ for the first time, they get baptized the following Sunday. And then after that, that happens every month, but we offer membership class every other month. So like 2 months worth of people would be, lumped together and they would take membership class. And so they go through 3 hours of, 3 axes, 4 pillars, and our, Southern Baptist faith statement and a lifestyle statement. And then we go over the membership covenant. And after they go through that, I pull out the application form to become a member. So I go, there are 3 or 4 items, and then I have people fill it in. And then at the end, if you'd like to become a member of New Life, what this church is all about, the commitment and the covenant, please sign. Basically, like 98% of the people actually sign, and then they become members of New Life. So I collect them, and then the following Sunday, like they come down from the second floor, they take pictures for our own database purpose. And the following Sunday, they go on the stage and they receive the certificate. And then we actually start to give this New Life coffee mug that has a New Life logo. And then we give them. And then the people, existing members, they welcome these people into our fellowship. And so that's what happens in the membership class.
Along those lines, when you first started that, Pastor Eric, and you basically funneled everyone through the Receiving Jesus meeting, Did you run into cases where people who grew up in the church their whole life that they realized, like, I might not be an actual Christian? Did you run into that situation?
Oh yeah, quite frequently.
I
So
bet. Yeah.
if they come and if I know these people personally, and then they say that I want to receive Jesus, I actually try to stop them. Hey, you grew up in church and then you received baptism, but what is this all about? And then some of these people will say that I thought I was a Christian, but this is the first time hearing this gospel, and then I want to receive Christ. So that happened a few times.
Yeah.
It is quite amazing.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, that's part of that whole argument of, so many youth leave the church after high school in so many churches, but
Right.
But you also wonder how many are actually genuinely, truly saved.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
And
Maybe
then,
a lot of them are never saved to begin with. Yeah.
yeah, and then I try to, if they received baptism already, I try to stop them. Hey, you got baptized already. And in some cases, not all the time, but in some cases they say that, yeah, I got baptized, but I didn't know what I was getting into.
Yeah.
I want to get baptized, and this is my personal decision. And so that happened a few times also.
Along those lines, this is one of my questions. I know you got to go soon, Dan, but I have a lot of people that grew up in Presbyterian churches. They joined our church. They're committed. And during the membership classes, when I would teach them, I would teach one of the requirements is to be baptized, fully immersed. And so there's many that were either sprinkle baptized.
Yeah.
And so I'm just curious how you've kind of navigated through that. I'm sure you've had people that grew up like that as well.
I had several cases, like that. And so, first of all, you have to ask yourself your own conviction. How strong of your conviction is about the believer's baptism by immersion? In my case, it's very strong, very strong. So, like, I will basically like that will be one of my non-negotiable.
Gotcha.
Believer's baptism by immersion.
Yeah.
And I think it's because Christians deviated from that thing. To a certain degree, Christianity has become very diluted. Like infant baptism, sprinkling baptism, I think caused a lot of havoc, in the Christendom. So for me, that's very important. So in the past, when these Presbyterians who were infant baptized come, and then there are two cases where they got infant baptized and they are genuinely saved, right? And in that case, we teach them, hey, your baptism, as an infant, really is not a biblical baptism. Some people get very turned off by that. Others realize, I agree. I didn't know what I was getting into, and then I want to have this experience, and they get baptized. But the very difficult case is these people who grew up in these sprinkling baptism churches, but they got sprinkled as a Christian.
Right.
So they are like 25 and they happen to go to Presbyterian church, and they received Christ and they got sprinkled. That's pretty hard, and that agonizes me. But this is what I say. Hey, I understand that your baptism came after the salvation, so that's the biblical order. But if you look at the mode of baptism, was always immersion, and this happens to be a Southern Baptist church, and we practice this. And I do not want to take away anything from your own experience because you went through the proper steps. But if you want to be part of us, I just simply ask you to respect our practice and our conviction. And I just leave it up to them. Some people choose to get baptized by immersion. Others say that, I really appreciate it, but, it's just too much for me. And they realize that if they don't get baptized by immersion, they cannot be a member. So they make a decision. Some of these people actually respectfully, sometimes disrespectfully, left the church. And that's okay. That's okay. Because we're not losing these people. They're going to go to some other place, where they practice a sprinkling baptism. So if you can have this mindset, as long as I don't lose these people, but they're going to go to different local churches, I'm okay with it. Then you have a lot of freedom. You're not gonna get so caught up with this numbers game,
Right. Good stuff.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, you're saying that even if someone was Presbyterian, comes to your church, and they have been sprinkle baptized after coming to faith, that they would have to be baptized again by immersion to become a member of your church.
Right, right. And
Okay.
in that case, I'll be very respectful. I'll be very compassionate. I understand, but the church that you went to didn't practice baptism by immersion. But if you look at the Bible, yeah, you lead them through the word of baptizo and all these things. And I tell them, you have an opportunity to get baptized the way that Christ got baptized.
Yeah.
And Christ commanded people to get baptized. And what a great opportunity. As I'll present it this way. But in these people who actually got infant baptized and they got saved afterwards, I would basically say that's not really a biblical baptism, and the order is messed up and the mode is messed up, and so.
Yeah, I've had it 4 times now where this issue came up during membership class, where they were sprinkled as a believer. So three of them immediately said, you know what, I'm going to get baptized.
Oh, that's great.
One person though took our last round of membership classes, and she actually didn't sign the covenant. And I told her, no pressure. I don't want to pressure you.
Yeah,
what I told her was, it's not that your sprinkled baptism was invalid, because she was already a Christian when she got sprinkled.
Okay.
I said, it's not, for me, it's not that big. That's not the primary issue. The primary issue is for us as a church to all be on the same page.
Exactly.
And kind of one in mind and one in practice.
Sure.
And so I kind of left her with that to think about. And so I sent her a couple articles too that I found online. Dan, in case you're wondering, Mark Dever he's a SBC guy. He has a really good article about how to handle that issue, and he pretty much says exactly what Pastor Eric just said.
Yeah, but like I said, with those people, I'll be very compassionate, because they didn't have any choice,
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah. I think I'm more. I'm definitely convicted with the order, is it after or before, but the mode, I guess I'm not a strong Baptist. That's I do immersion, believe in immersion, but but I'll be interested to see what Mark Dever says. I know he's a very good Baptist.
That's the pastor's conviction. So as long as you have your own conviction and you're very consistent with it, then that's fine.
But I love, Pastor Eric, what you said, that we have to have the mindset that from a kingdom perspective, we're not losing anyone. And that gives a lot of freedom, and man, that's powerful. Yeah, I love that.
So if you are willing to live with a little messiness when it comes to baptism, some people get sprinkled baptized, and that you accept them, others get. So that's a little bit messy and confusing. But if you are willing to live with that, that's perfectly fine.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Pastor Eric, but correct me if I'm wrong, but someone once told me that there's more Korean Presbyterians than any other denomination. Is that correct?
That's true.
Okay. Yeah. So I would say, of the people that didn't grow up at the church I'm at, most of the Koreans, the vast majority, grew up in Presbyterian churches.
They did, and then when I was growing up in Korea, I didn't even know what Baptist was all about, and the two strong denominations in Korea is like a Methodist and the Presbyterian. So other than that, it sounded all very foreign. And so people say, oh, what is Baptist? And they even thought that Baptists were like a cult. They were doing, the immersion baptism and all that stuff. But the Presbyterian is the biggest, because it was the Presbyterian missionaries who had the greatest impact, on the Korean peninsula. I think that's the main reason. And then they actually went to a more civilized city than the Baptist missionaries. Baptist missionaries went to a mountainous region, whereas the Presbyterians went to the capital and the prosperous city.
Okay. Well, Mitchell, do you have another question you want to ask, or I can ask a question?
Sure. Yeah, I have a couple things. First, Pastor Eric, I want to thank you for taking the 9 shepherds that are going next month, last minute notice.
That's right, man.
I apologize that we didn't get it in sooner. I know that must have been tough. So, like I told you in the voicemail I left you, I said all I could ask is for mercy, and I appreciate it. I really appreciate that. Our people are very excited. Yeah, one question I had was, how do you train your shepherds in the area of when to push a VIP to go to RJM? Because I know it's not like as soon as they come, you don't want to bombard them right away and say, go to RJM. So what should the shepherd be looking for in the VIP, and maybe what they say within house church where the shepherd would then say, I want to strongly encourage you, ask that you go to next month's RJM. What are they looking for?
So I know that it is all very different from person to person. But the one thing that I tell the shepherds is, do not push these people in too prematurely. So they have to experience a lot of love. They also have to experience the reality of the answered prayer. So they have to see that, like enough times for them to be very curious about this Christianity, But, out of the eagerness, they just push these people in. Sometimes, like, they come with the wrong attitude and the wrong heart. The heart is not really a photo. It's not really prepared, and it's not ready. And so there were a few cases where I just felt like I was speaking, to the wall, and they're not really receptive. So I tell people, hey, I just, like a little bit more patient. Who is that? Your son? Hello?
I'm sorry, this is my son.
What's his name?
His name's Isaiah.
Isaiah, how are you?
Hey, Isaiah.
So cute. Yeah, so like, only the shepherds and shepherds' wives and the members will know if VIPs are ready. But, one caution is, do not push these people too quickly, And then, but at the same time, if the church has created this culture where people are talking about RJM and the people are getting baptized, then the VIPs, will hear about that. And so like they will get curious, hey, what's going on at the like RJM, my way. Sometimes like they say, I want to go. Sometimes they say, I want to go. And so do not do it prematurely, but allow them to receive lots of love, and then have them experience answered prayer, and then have them get curious about what this is all about. And at the same time, shepherds cannot push time to time. They know if they are praying for these people, they should know by looking at the response if they are ready or not. And even if the VIPs will say no, they know what kind of no that is. No, absolute no, or no, I don't think so. But that's the kind of no where you can push a little bit.
And then along those same lines, I know you have your monthly RJM. Do you ever give a gospel presentation or response on a Sunday sermon, a Sunday message?
So Sunday message, like if the passage is very specific about, how I can tie, like what Jesus did and all that, I will do that, And I will often, I'm a little bit different than Gospel Coalition guys, where you have to talk about the gospel every single Sunday.
Yeah.
I can't disagree with that, Yeah. Because I also believe that if you have this audience coming to your church week in, week out, of course, there might be some brand new people, but because we have a house church system where they can go, and then our interest is not in these people who show up to our church on their own as an unbeliever.
Yeah.
There might be some people like that, but that's not our primary target. We want to reach out to VIPs through house church. So I have this captive audience who show up. And so even if I don't preach the gospel every single Sunday, I have a monthly RJM. I have different avenues through which I can do that. So I don't feel that, like this compelling need. But, if the passage talks about it, I will do that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. But that is one of the, that is one of the rubs that people from the Gospel Coalition have with people like me. You gotta preach the gospel every single Sunday.
Right. Yeah, I'm glad you said that. I actually agree with you too about that, and I think from their perspective, it's because their primary contact with people in their church and non-Christians is the Sunday.
Exactly.
Yeah, but in house church model, you have your primary contact for dealing with non-Christians is house church, and so
house church and receiving Jesus meeting, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, like you're absolutely right. These are churches that emphasize that they don't have other avenues,
Right.
so they rely on Sunday to do everything.
Right.
But for example, let's say we talk about, let's say the passage talks about the Holy Spirit,
Right.
and I want to accentuate the person of the Holy Spirit,
Right.
you know, and so I want the Holy Spirit to be the main person, not this gospel, like the one that, of course, it's because of the gospel the Holy Spirit is there. But again, I want to make the main thing.
The main thing that attracted me to house church was the 3 axes, because I felt so trapped to try to fit in all these aspects of doing church in an hour and a half one day.
Exactly. Right.
It's the whole motto of, can you do 3 things very poorly or 3 separate things better and well?
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I also want to tell you, just a side comment. We're SBC. We got denominational funding several months back, which was a blessing. And then part of that process, they give you a coach from NAM, North American Mission Board.
Yeah.
So my coach, amazing guy. He actually was helping out Rick Warren for a while at Saddleback, starting the global Saddlebacks. He was the main guy in charge of that. And so he's my coach, and so he meets with me on a monthly basis. He's extreme. He'd never heard about house church, so when I've been explaining all this to him, he's been blown away. And so he, I'll let you know how it goes. But next month he wants me to be. There's a monthly meeting with about 40 church planners in Long Beach County, Orange County, and Los Angeles County. So he wants me to present next October this whole house church system. He's like so blown away by it. I had him come and guest speak at our church, and he was, I didn't know this, but he was saying, I'm telling all of our SBC friends about this. I'm so blown away that Mitchell's church came up with this. And I always correct them every time. I said, I didn't come up with this. There's a church in Houston, Texas, this Korean church called Soul Baptist Church. And then I told him about you and your church, but he always says that. He says, Mitchell, and I always like, no, I didn't do it. But just want to let you know, it's a pretty awesome testimony. And we also have a monthly, my assistant pastor and I, we started a monthly pastor's prayer meeting for other pastors in our city. And we have Presbyterian guys, Methodist guys, and it's we even have women pastors, which at first I was uncomfortable, but the primary purpose is to pray for the city. And so we come together once a month. Well, recently 2 of those pastors, because they hear about what we're doing, they have met with me privately, and so I've given them the house church book. I've given them some materials, and I always reference you and your church and your website. And so it's pretty interesting. A lot of where I'm at, there's some intrigue, and a lot of people haven't heard about it and are very curious about it.
Hey, let me ask you a question. So you meet on Fridays, right?
We meet on Friday. We have 5 house churches on Friday and 1 on Saturday.
1 on Saturday.
Yeah.
Knowing these so-called like Americans, you're dealing with Hispanics and Asians, right? Knowing these like white guys.
Yeah.
Do you think this would be possible?
So this is what I
have a strong reservation.
Yeah.
About white people who are so individualistic,
correct,
family oriented,
correct,
giving up on meeting on Fridays to do this thing.
Yep. No, I think you're right. My personal opinion, currently, I think you're right. I even told this when I was telling this to this guy who has a lot of experience with Rick Warren and Saddleback. He told me, he says, Mitchell, this is awesome what you're doing.
Yeah.
But I had a church in Virginia. I don't think this would ever work.
Right.
The people they don't have that mindset. And so, but in my context, where there's mostly Hispanics and Asians, where there's already a very high view of family, like a familial community type of mindset. Yeah. Where family is so important. It's not very like more white. Western culture is more individualistic, right?
Yeah.
And so we're seeing it work extremely well for us. Yeah.
That's why one white pastor who actually participated in the seminar, I think maybe together with you guys, or I don't know when he came, he said this may not work in a typical white churches.
Yeah.
But if you start from scratch,
right,
if you start from scratch by reaching out to unbelievers who don't have church baggage, this may work even in white context. But he realized that it's not going to be easy to transition white
Yeah.
churches to have them meet on Friday, because Friday is like a football and a basketball.
Oh,
And
Yeah.
it's like, hey, I deserve this day to myself.
Right.
So I worked really hard. So
I also think if I waited 10 years to do this, I think it would be very difficult, because we only have about 10 children, and they're all under the age of 6.
okay.
So, and most of them are newborns or toddlers. And my mentality too is if they would have got older, because Little League and different children's programs,
Right.
that's going to take over. But because we started right here and are building upon it, and it's part of the culture, I think it'll be better. But if I would have waited 10 years where many more people in our church got married, had children, I think that could be an issue too.
Man, I'm telling you, I just came back from a pastor's retreat, and one pastor was so angry and frustrated with his own church people because their lives are centered around the kids' extracurricular activities.
Yeah.
And some of these kids are really successful with the volleyball, fencing. They don't even come to church on Sunday.
Wow.
Crazy.
Yeah, I think like also that like what I noticed in the southern churches, like in Tennessee, like there are many who they're used to having 2 services on Sunday, morning and evening, and then a Wednesday night. They're there every Wednesday night. So I think like in the sense it's not that different, but then like they're used to coming out several times, for church, and so I think it's doable. But then there's a lot of shift in like from a passive Christianity where I come and I sit and I learn to living out, serving, and actually lay-driven ministry. I think that's a huge thing. But we have some American churches who are interested over here too. I got the same reaction. They're like, man, that's awesome. Like all our people, they just want to consume. And it's like this, but this idea of Ephesians 4, you guys are really equipping the saints, and having them go out. And so, but we'll see what happens.
In your context, like you mentioned about that these white people coming to church building multiple times, possibly maybe like a Sunday early evening may work out for these guys, because instead of going to church building, if you have these house churches on Sunday, a little bit earlier, so that they'll be more relaxed, that might work out. Okay, then you gotta go, right?
Yeah, sorry, I gotta get going.
Okay.
But thank you so much, and I'm gonna sign off here. But like, if you guys, want to keep talking, please do. Okay. And then, and let's do it again sometime.
All right, man. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much. Okay.
Okay. God bless.
See you, Mitchell. See you, Pastor. Okay. Bye.